The one thing that should be clear to all of these Republican extremists is that the statute of limitations for any crimes being committed now is 5 years. It will extend well beyond the end of the Trump administration.
And they may find out, down the road that they did something that is illegal.
The old saying, what comes around goes around.
Mm-hmm.
Today it's a Republican president, but
sometimes I forget about just how bad it was under the Biden administration. And then every once in a while I am reminded. And today was another one of those days I was reminded, because Democrats are now openly warning Republicans that if they follow the directives of the Trump administration, they will be targeted the moment Democrats return to power. Now, I want you to think about that. These are the same people who are claiming that it is Donald Trump who is currently weaponizing the government against his political opponents. And I probably don't need to remind you of this, but this is the same party, the same people that actually weaponized the Justice Department against Donald Trump. They tried to derail his campaign, tried to arrest him. And of course, they spent years insisting the 2016 election was illegitimate. They said it was controlled by Russia. And now they're saying if you enforce the law while Trump is president, we will come for you later. Hakeem Jeffries literally just said this. He sent an ominous warning to Republicans, reminding them that the statute of limitations is 5 years. Now, why would he say this? Well, the reason why is because he's insinuating that after Trump leaves office, and if they regain power, they will come after you, essentially trying to stifle any progress the Trump administration is making by threatening the people who serve under him. Also, these are the same Democrats who are claiming Trump is acting illegally for sending the National Guard into cities, trying to get crime under control, saying he is acting illegally for deporting people who were already in the country illegally. I mean, how does that make sense? The irony literally writes itself. Deporting someone who is unlawfully present isn't illegal. It's literally enforcing the law. It's restoring order. But the pushback never stops. Even now, of course, Trump is back in office. He's the president. He's doing exactly what many Americans voted for: tougher immigration enforcement. And the most recent one, hundreds of federal agents are being sent into Minnesota's Somali communities, a serious crackdown on fraud and abuse. Despite the fact that this is simply why we voted for him, Democrats are still issuing threats. And the scary part is that these aren't fringe voices. These aren't just everyday regular Democrats, which I'm sure, they're cheering this on. But this is also coming from top Democrats like Hakeem Jeffries, the one I mentioned earlier, but also Senator Mark Kelly, Senator Richard Blumenthal, also coming from popular media fixtures like crazy George Conway. And they're all signaling the same thing. If you do what Trump says, we will punish you when we're back in charge. Republicans are constantly being told to fear a return to the Biden-era environment, censorship, weaponized agencies, political targeting, and blanket accusations of extremism. And yet, somehow, every day, Democrat voters hear all of this, and they still claim that it is Donald Trump who is the authoritarian. It defies logic until you realize just how deep cognitive dissonance runs in this country. It's actually pretty frightening. And there's a saying, I think, that fits perfectly here. They cry out as they strike you. Now, I want you to listen to this and remember, this isn't some random commentator. This is House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. And he's out here reminding Republicans that the statute of limitations is 5 years. So what exactly is he doing here? I think it's pretty obvious. This is a veiled threat aimed at Republicans serving under the Trump administration. And the message is clear. Before you carry out Trump's directives, think 5 years down the road. Who's going to hold power then? Are you willing to gamble that it'll still be Republicans? Because if it's us, you might want to watch your back. This is a intimidation tactic. This is clearly a warning to Republicans that if Democrats regain control, they will come looking for payback.
The one thing that should be clear So all of these Republican extremists and sycophants and the people who are either actively involved in corruption, violating the law, engaged in extrajudicial activity, is that the statute of limitations for any crimes being committed now 5 years. It will extend well beyond the end of the Trump administration.
Now, of course, Hakeem Jeffries would argue that what he is saying here is that he's just warning Republicans who are corrupt, who are violating the law, who are extremists. But let's be honest, according to today's Democrat Party, if you're just an average run-of-the-mill Republican, you are an extremist. And of course, we can't forget the history. These are the same Democrats who tried to put him in jail. They tried to put him through endless lawsuits, or they actually did put him through endless lawsuits. And of course, pushed an entire national hoax claiming his 2016 campaign was run by the Russians. They spent years insisting that lie was the truth. So the idea that they have any credibility left is laughable, yet they still point fingers, claim Trump is the authoritarian, claim he's weaponizing the government, and then in the next breath, the very next breath, they announce they're going to come after supposed bad actors in his administration if they get back in power. Am I the only one seeing the irony here? What credibility do they have to make statements like this? None. Those warnings aren't made in good faith. They are threats, plain and simple, aimed at people serving in the Trump administration. And honestly, it's pretty frightening. But that was just the most recent example. It's not the only one. There's a whole slew of videos of Democrats doing this. I probably see them on my Twitter feed almost daily now. But that one just really stood out because it's coming from the House Minority Leader. And I think this shows this is clearly something that is in the cards for Democrats. And honestly, we probably shouldn't expect anything less. But every now and then, I think it's worth reminding ourselves about what Democrats are actually capable of. But then, of course, we had none other than Senator Mark Kelly here, one of the seditious six. He's still reeling from the possibility that he could be court-martialed by Pete Hegseth for encouraging military members and intelligence personnel to disobey Trump's order. But he also alluded to Republicans being targeted once Democrats get back into power. Listen.
Difference between the initial strike and what is being reported, as a second strike. And those things are different. I think this administration has tied themselves in knots, the explanations that we have received on how this is all legal. And I was saying weeks ago, my concern is with the service members, that we're going to put these individuals in a really, really tough decision, in a tough place. And they may find out, down the road that they did something that is illegal. It is not fair to them. That's why we need presidents and Secretary of Defense who understand the Constitution, who understand the rule of law, and have more respect for the Constitution and the country and service members than the whims of a president.
Did you catch that? He said that some of these service members serving underneath Donald Trump might find out down the road that something they did underneath the Trump administration was illegal. And he says that's not fair to them, meaning they could be facing repercussions once the Democrats get back into office. It's absolutely chilling. But that's not all, because if you just go a couple months back, we had Senator Richard Blumenthal essentially saying the exact same thing.
The old saying, what comes around goes around. Today it's a Republican president, but degrading the democracy and ruining, literally perverting the great ethos and tradition of the Department of Justice, where I was in awe when I walked through those halls as a federal prosecutor. I think it's time for Republican colleagues to say enough is enough, and we are going to push them and do it hard.
What comes around goes around. I think it's pretty obvious what Senator Blumenthal meant by that. But honestly, I think it's sad that we've reached this point in American politics. We all know polarization has been around for a long time. But we're now at a place where there's almost no common ground left between the two parties. And sure, I mean, people could say that I'm biased, fine. But some of the issues where we should share common ground are exactly the areas where Democrats and the broader left, these leftists, have veered off into radical territory. Things like immigration or the big cultural fights we saw during the Biden administration, issues that Trump ended up winning on because they were rooted in basic common sense. Take the whole no men and women sports issue. They used to be a bipartisan, reality-based position. Men are men, women are women. This wasn't controversial. But Democrats didn't just question it. They didn't just debate it. They imposed the opposite on the entire country. People were getting canceled, censored, shut down, all for believing and espousing something as simple as biological reality. And again, critics might say, well, you're conservative, of course, you're going to think that. But here's the thing. Conservatives make the stronger case, I believe, for why Democrats should return to common ground because of these historically shared issues. Issues where America used to agree. It wasn't Republicans who walked away. It was Democrats who abandoned that ground entirely. But finally, we have the crazy man himself. We have George Conway. Of course, he's going to say this, but I did want to throw this in just for entertainment value. This is what George Conway had to say.
I mean, the most important thing is we have a president who is not a criminal. That is the absolutely most important thing. Other than that, I think what we have to do is figure out what safeguards. And I think this is really, really important for people who are going to be in Congress over the next 2 to 4 years. And I've been thinking about that a lot for some reason. First of all, there has to be accountability of this administration and the bad actors around it. You know, CEG, this whole Witkoff thing. I mean, what the hell? And then there has to be kind of a reconstruction here. And this is a critical part of the reconstruction program that lawyers are going to have to figure out mechanisms that are constitutional and draft statutes that, you know, prevent some of this shit from ever happening again, including, you know, electing a crazy president. One of the things I would want to do if I were ever a member of Congress would be to, you know, create a body under the 25th Amendment, Section 4, that would decide the president's capacity separate from the cabinet.
So basically, this shows that the Democrats have learned absolutely nothing over the past several years. They still want to go back to weaponizing the government against the people, against the other parties. And I think it's pretty scary once you think about it. What could happen if Democrats get back in power? Because these are radical people. These are people that want to strip you of your rights, all while saying that it is the Republicans, it is Donald Trump who wants to do that exact thing. It's pretty sick stuff. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think of this whole situation? What do you think of the House Minority Leader saying that the statute of limitations is 5 years, and if you're a Republican in 5 years and you followed these orders, watch out? What do you think about that? Let me know down below what you think. Like and subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. But until then, I'll see you on the next one.